So without further ado, I want to introduce Kurt, who's our presenter today. So let's get going. Kurt, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Dan, and thanks everyone for joining today. As Dan mentioned, this is going to be a brief overview on key performance indicators within CSI. I'm going to briefly explain what KPIs are, why they might be important. Let's actually move to the agenda. We're going to talk about, again, what they are, why they might be important, how they're used and implemented within CSI, which are critical numbers, the anatomy of critical numbers, so basically the main components that drive the critical numbers module within the system. We're also going to jump into a demo, a live demo, and I'm going to show you what the look and feel of critical numbers are, as well as how to create a new critical number from scratch, as well as how to add a critical number as a gauge to an existing form within CSI. And really that's where the true power of KPIs and critical numbers come into play. So let's get started here. So what is a key performance indicator, right? So a couple definitions here. A measurable value that demonstrates how effectively a company is achieving their key business objectives, right? Or it's a way of measuring the effectiveness of an organization and its progress towards its goals and targets. What I like to say, it's really about setting your key targets and goals, right? That are most important to you and to your organization, right? And then watching those key numbers using real-time data. And I think that should be a key takeaway today, is this is all real-time data, right? Super powerful, to have data at your fingertips. It's not a week old or a month old like some reports, but it's real time, up to the second. So why are they important? So I've talked about that a little bit, but basically it allows a company to measure its targets and goals, right, against real data and real-time data, right? It'll provide you with the snapshots and the history to view the overall performance of your company, right? And it also allows you to make small adjustments throughout a period or throughout a quarter, throughout a month in real time, right? So you're not making last minute decisions at the end of each month to reach your target, right? So with KPIs, you can see how you're doing, right? First week of the month, first day of the month, you can see where your actual numbers are compared to your targets. So how are they implemented within CSI? So within CSI, they are called critical numbers. So there is a critical numbers module that is built into CSI. And when I say CSI, I'm talking about the newest version, CSI 10, with older versions of CSI or Sightline that would have been part of the Workbench suite. But within CSI 10, it's built into the core system. So they leverage different connection points within your database to create real-time metrics. I'm going to talk about a couple of those connection points as we go through the demo. There's over 100 predefined critical numbers out of the box. I think 127, I believe. And it's also very easy to create and customize your own critical numbers as well. And I think that's key, right? It's nice to have something out of the box, but it's also nice to be able to create your own custom metrics as well, to match exactly what you and your company is looking to achieve for targets, right? Finally, they can be added to any form in CSI by means of a chart or a widget. And I'm going to show you towards the end what they look like. Also, we're going to create a brand new gauge and add it to a form as well. So you'll see firsthand exactly what that looks like. So there's actually several components, but there are four main components that I want to talk about in regards to critical numbers. The first one is the critical numbers form itself. So this is where you can view each of your critical numbers within categories, you can see the actual values, and you can see the goals and alerts for each of those numbers as well. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. There's also the critical number setup. That's where you can define or create your own customized critical numbers. It's also where you can change the goal and alert settings on predefined critical numbers. You can also add and configure the drill downs, which I'll talk about in just a second. You can also define very detailed user permissions as well, which I think is a huge benefit of this as well. You have very detailed user control, both at the critical number level as well as at the category level, to make sure that you know exactly who is able to see your data. The drill downs, this is a very powerful feature. So within each critical number, you can define the drill down. So what that means basically is you can drill into the components of that critical number. So a critical number is typically a summation, right, or a total of a specific data set, right? If you look at a number and it looks awfully high or it looks awfully low, and you want to really understand what made up that critical number, it's really handy and helpful to be able to click into that and drill into it and view the transactional detail, looking for exceptions or anomalies or anything like that. And I'm going to show you briefly what that looks like as well. And finally, gauges. So gauges or charts or widgets is basically your visual view of critical numbers. And that is basically what most people are going to see, right? They're not going to see, the critical numbers form. They're not going to see the setup form. That's more of a configuration. They're going to see the gauges. They're going to see the dashboard on the front end. And of course, we're going to show you what that looks like as well. All right, without any further ado, let's switch over to the demo, and I will show you what the critical numbers look like. So I am sharing my screen. Just holler Dan if you can see it. I'm assuming everyone can.
Sure. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. So again, this is CSI 10. I'm using the smart client instead of the web client, just for it's a little bit easier to modify the form definition this way. So the first thing is, I guess, where is critical numbers? Now I have the system menu pinned to my menu bar up here. But if you were starting from scratch and you're looking for critical numbers, if you were in CSI 10, you'll simply go to Master Explorer and Modules and System and Critical Numbers. So this is where you would find all of your forms and utilities related to critical numbers. Okay, again, just for ease of use, I've pinned that to my menu bar just to make it easier for me to navigate to the various forms. Okay, so let's start by opening up the critical numbers form. And I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like. We're going to navigate around the form, and I'm going to show you some of the key components. So as you can see, all of the critical numbers are organized into categories, right? So that'll make it very easy for you to find exactly what you're looking for. I'm going to look at customer orders today. So if you expand customer orders, you're going to see a number of critical numbers within this category, right? Now, if I click on a category name, customer orders, all of the critical numbers within this category are going to be displayed. Right. So again, a real easy way to get a bird's eye view of what your numbers are doing per category, if you choose to look at it this way. Let me talk about a couple of the different color combinations and kind of what they mean. They are pretty, pretty common sense in terms of how they work. The first one I'll talk about is the red, or the alert. So past due order lines. This KPI would be an alert status, right? And that's simply because the actual value, so we have 83 order lines past due in this demo system, right? We have an alert set up of more than 50, right? So that means that this KPI is now in alert status, and this is telling you something is wrong, right? You need to go and do something about this, right? Now, if this was displayed as a gauge or a chart on the dashboard, you'll have a red background or a red gauge or something that will tell you, hey, this is something that requires your attention, right? Hopefully that makes sense. If we look at a yellow example, so late customer orders, YTD, I'm picking on this one because we have a bit of data here. So yellow means warning, right? So it's kind of in between your goal and alerts, right? And again, actual value of late orders is 4, and the alerts is set at more than or equal to 5, right? So this is saying we don't necessarily have an issue, but it might be trending towards an issue, right? So this is something that if it's yellow, you may want to take a look at it just to try and prevent that from getting into alert status, right? And finally, we have green, right? So if we look at late customer order value, YTD, everything is good, right? So our actual value is 9,200. And their goal is under 200,000. So we're well within the limit. So just wanted to show you examples of goal status, which is green, alert status, warning status, which is yellow, and alert status, which is red. A couple more things on this form. The as of dates might be handy for you guys. This allows you to basically go back in time, right, and see what your critical numbers look like. For example, last month or last quarter. If you wanted to compare this month's CO shipments compared to last month's CO shipments, you would change the as of date. This is an older database. So if I go back a couple of years, I just want to show you that a lot of these critical numbers will change, right? So now basically we're looking at 2017 data, right? So all of the metrics and all of the actual values are going to completely change, right? The other thing is the drill downs on the bottom left here. I talked about that in the slide deck. So drill downs allows you to drill into your transactional detail, right? So if we look at an example, we have late customer orders year to date, right? Actual value is 4. We may want to know what those 4 orders are, right? Who are they affecting? Which customers, right, are involved, right? So we would simply click on the drill down, and it'll pop up with a listing of those four critical numbers, so you can kind of further analyze and review this information, right? Something else to note here is this is actually a data view, right? So when we drill into a critical number, it actually opens data views. Now, data views is a separate module within CSI that's outside of the scope of what we're talking about today, but all I'll say about it is it's a very handy tool to be able to further format and slice and dice your data, right? You can add additional columns, you can sort, you can add groupings and filters and summaries, right? You can also export to Excel, right? So if you had, let's say you had several hundred records here, you may want to export that to Excel or add some groupings to further analyze that data. So again, a really cool feature within CSI. The last thing on critical numbers I want to show you is the snapshots tab. So the snapshots does just that. It takes a snapshot of your critical numbers. This is really handy if you want to start doing trending analysis, right? And if you want to trend your data to see if you're, working towards your goals or maybe going, away from your goals. So for example, if I change the start date to 2019, you're going to see I have a number of snapshots, right? This is a very small use case, but hopefully this will illustrate the idea behind this, right? So if we were to have daily snapshots, for example, we could watch our bookings per day, right? And hopefully it's going to go up, or hopefully it's going to kind of align to a target that we have set up internally, right? To generate a snapshot, you have to use the snapshot generation utility. What most customers do is they would add this to their background queue. What that means is it'll basically be scheduled to run automatically. Most people would do it every night, right? So every morning you would come in and you would see what your snapshot is for that day, right? So you do have to enable the snapshots. for each critical number, but once they're enabled and once you have snapshot generation configured, it'll just do it automatically. Again, over time, hopefully you can see that this is a big benefit to be able to start trending your KPIs or your numbers to see how you're doing. Okay, I think that's it for the critical numbers form. I think I'm doing okay on time here. Let me briefly open critical numbers setup. And this is where you can create your own critical numbers, which we're going to do in just a minute. Also where you can configure the predefined or the canned critical numbers as well. So a couple things here. Each critical number has to be active for it to be usable. If you want snapshots enabled, you have to check this box. The source, so we have a couple different source types, store procedure and IDO. That basically means two different ways to connect to the database to access the real-time data. Okay, the calculation definition here is pretty handy. This is a really simple one, but if it's a pretty complicated critical number, this will explain what the number is doing, right? How it's, you know, sorting or summing or grouping that data, how it's maybe filtering that data. And this text box here is basically visible as a hover over, right? So if you have a gauge on a form and you hover over that gauge, you're going to see the calculation definition, right? So it's going to tell you exactly what that is. So again, a pretty handy feature. And finally, the alerts and goals, right? So this is where you can define what your specific alerts and or goals are. You know, you may just want to have an alert. You may not care about a goal, right? In this case, you know, we probably don't really want to have any, you know, past due order lines. But if, you know, if it exceeds 50, then we want to be notified, right? So if you wanted to use canned or predefined critical numbers, what I would recommend is you go in here and you define what your alerts and what your goals should be, right, based on your targets and your metrics within your organization. A couple more things on this tab, drill downs. This is where you would link a drill down form to a specific critical number, right? Each critical number is linked to a category, right? And this is where you define that. Excuse me, I briefly talked about users on the slide deck. So this is where you can define who has access to each critical number, right? You can do it either at the category level or at the individual critical number level. That's pretty detailed. As you can see, we can specify who can run the critical number, simply view it, who can drill down into the transactional detail, who can maybe change parameters or display settings of that critical number, who can change user permissions as well as receive emails. Pretty detailed and a pretty powerful feature of the critical numbers module. All right, so next thing we're going to do here, I have a little under 10 minutes. We're going to create a brand new critical number, and we're going to add it to the customers form, and I'm going to show you how to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to create something very simple. It's going to be called total orders by customer. It's going to be filtered based on your customer number, and it's going to give you a gauge or a view of how many orders each customer has entered. Now, you know, this is very simple. You can, you know, add filters to it to say only show me open orders, or only show me orders over a certain dollar value, right? Or by quarter, right? So there's all sorts of additional filtering you can do. So we're simply going to create a new record. We're going to call it total orders by customer. Okay, and we're going to click on general. Now we're going to change the source type to an IDO. I'm going to click on source name. And I happen to know that the IDO for this critical number is going to be SLCOS, and that is basically customer orders. You can also, you know, scroll through this list as well and try and find the IDO you're looking for. Okay, so the function is going to be count, right? So if you want to do a sum, that might be good for quantity on hand or something like that, or an average or a min or a max. We simply want a number or a count of all of the orders per customer, right? So we're going to choose count. As I mentioned, we're not going to add any filters at this time. I am going to add a date range though, because I do want to talk about this. The date range is really handy because it allows you to, on the fly, change the time perspective of your critical number. So for example, I may want to see year-to-date orders by customer, right? Or maybe week-to-date, or maybe only today's customers if you're today's orders if you're high volume, right? And, maybe last year to date as well. And if you wanted to get detailed, you could even add your goals and alerts within each time range as well. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can configure the critical number. So that's it for the IDO setup. Now we need to do a couple more things. For the sake of time, I'm not going to add a drill down, but you would simply connect to a drill down that's related to your data source. I'm going to add it to a category. This is required. So of course, orders would be the category that we would want. Users, I'm logged in as the system admin, so I don't have to do this. But if I wanted to grant myself access, for example, I would specify a username and then define what actions I can do within that critical number. The last thing we need to do is we need to add an input parameter, right? Because we are linking this critical number to specific customers, we need to provide that parameter that tells the critical number how to filter, right? So I know that the property name is custom. Again, you can filter through the list, right? So this is the customer number of the IDO collection. And that's it. So we saved, we now have a new critical number. It's number 127. It is total orders by customer. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the customers form. Okay. So I'm going to quickly open customers. And we would go into the edit mode or design mode, which is the little paintbrush here. Okay, and we have a gauge object on the left. I'm going to click on that, and I see there's a nice open space on the bottom right. So I'm going to put my gauge down here in the bottom. Now what I need to do is bind that to the critical number that we just created, right? So I'm going to click on data source up here to the right, click on binding. Okay, my type is going to be gauge. I'm going to click on edit. Okay, I click on critical number down below and I choose my critical number. So 127 total orders by customer, right? As you can see, there's all sorts of options here. You can change the look and feel and the colors and the formats of this. So a lot of functionality and flexibility in terms of making this gauge exactly the way you want it to look and feel. The last thing I need to do here is define a customer variable, right? So because we have an input parameter on the critical number, we need to pass it a value of customer, right? So P is the property name, and again, it's the same thing as custom. So I know that the property name on the IDO is custom. So we're going to enter that in. And assuming I didn't miss anything, that should do it. So I'm going to click OK. Okay, I'm going to save this. Now, when I exit edit mode and I filter on a customer, this gauge is going to automatically update, right, based on the customer. So customer number 1 has a total of 43 orders, right? If I click on customer number 2, Price Brothers, they have 28 orders, right? It's a very simple example, but I'm hoping it helps illustrate some of the things you can do within critical numbers, right? This might not be overly useful, but maybe maybe adding some filters to say how many open orders or does this customer have, or how many orders with a specific ship to address, right? So again, very easy to add your own custom critical numbers, and also very easy to add gauges to a form. The very last thing I want to show you is a couple examples of what gauges may look like on forms or on dashboards, right? And I do have 2 examples. One, this may take just a second to load, but this is a home page. So CSI has several pre-built home pages. This is the inventory control home page. Now, if I click on critical numbers, this is basically a dashboard when it does load of all of the various KPIs that we can add, right? So in this case, we have 4, right? Inventory value, items, and cycle count, and a couple more down below. Again, gives you an example of having a dashboard with multiple KPIs or metrics on it. Like I haven't showed this yet, but you can simply go into display settings and you can change your critical number. If you say, no, I don't want that one, I want a different critical number, it's as simple as changing in here. You can also change your gauge type as well, right? So these are the various options for different gauges. Okay. So the very last thing I want to show you is I'm going to switch to another image here. This is one of our demo images. This is a kind of souped up version of the items form. This is kind of meant to give you an idea of what's capable, right? So here is the items form with several KPIs directly on the form, right? So we could click on different part numbers and these KPIs would update automatically, right? Again, just trying to give you examples of how powerful this is, right? So now we have everything on one screen, right? We no longer have to navigate to different forms or maybe print reports and maybe pour through a whole bunch of data. It's all there on your screen, ready to be kind of reviewed and analyzed, and hopefully save you a lot of time at the end of the day. And that is it for my demo. I'll pass it over to you, Dan, to see if there's any questions out there.
Thanks so much, Kurt. I'm going to open the floor now to anybody who'd like to ask a question. If you would, please just hit the microphone and request mic access, and I'll open you up. Well, Kurt, it looks like your presentation was so good that you answered everybody's questions on the fly.
Well, that's perfect.
So I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I do want to mention that our next webinar is coming up on August 20th on paperless bank reconciliation in CSI. I would encourage you all to register for that one if you haven't already. It will be just as informative as this one was, but on a slightly different topic. So with that, I want to thank you all. Have a great long weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.